I apologize in advance. My mic broke today, the cable, so I'm using my wife's headphone set. So the question was, how do you get everything to stay inside the circle? And it's an easy solution. First off, you're going to use an alphabet. I love the parenting you've got going on, and I see you used Duick. Great job learning something new to get the results you wanted. Now your orange circle, you had shy enabled. I'm going to turn that off. Here's shy enable to turn it on and off, and any icon you click here will shy that layer. That just means it hides itself from your timeline. So if you're going to be shying things, make sure you've got them turned off or on if you need them to be seen. Here's our circle. To make this work, it's one layer revealing one layer. We already know the circle will be the shape, revealing what is to be seen. Now I'm going to select everything above, because I think these paws appear outside of the circle. Okay, I think I got it all. So now I'm going to pre-compose this. We'll try it again. Move all attributes. Good evening, everybody. Now let's see what happens. Shape that's going to mask everything goes over top. Select the shape below. Choose my alpha mat. Now we're cooking. We've got everything inside there. So I'm going to duplicate that circle, put it at the bottom of my layer stack, show it again. This is the beauty of alpha mats. This, as you can see, has keyframes to it. Doesn't matter. We've got it. If I duplicate it and choose to use it as my alpha mat, it's still going to move with the animation. It's using the alpha of the shape to show or reveal something inside of it. So now you've still got your Duick puppet rig working. You've got your letters appearing as you want them to. And it was a fast, easy solution of an alpha mat. And always remember, an alpha mat is one layer revealing one layer. So since your rig that we needed to put inside it had 25 layers, I selected all 25 of those layers, right-clicked, chose pre-compose, and then moved them all into a new composition. So there's the composition, the alpha mat goes above it, and what you want to reveal inside. Under track mat, you choose your alpha mat. And now your character is staying inside of the circle, even when the tail stops moving. The head comes up. And at this point, let's do some bonus while we're here. Okay, so you're scaling them up there. So there's the P for position. Now let's try, and you've got those ears parented to the head. Good. So I'll select all 4 ear layers and hit the P key. I'm just experimenting here. I'm going to go forward a few frames, so it's really short motion. Move them down. Let's go past where they were, because your ears are longer than they need to be. Down a little. And you can keep going back and forth, but let's see what that little bit of overshoot does. See how you can tighten that up and clean up as you see fit, but just adding extra motion once the character is done moving is what it's all about. That's when you get into your sophisticated motion design. So I would do that for the ears. Maybe a little bit of tussling of the hair outlines. And that's parented. Fantastic job setting this up. All your layers are labeled, which makes it easy for me. So you've got your path moving a little bit, which is great. Here's where it's ending up. Now watch this. Once it's done moving, it should have a little bit of swishing. So I'll go forward a few frames. Paths. So I hit shift to deselect that one. Then I selected just that one, this one, and that one. So if the head was moving this way, we'll have them start dragging from the direction they came in. Then we can move forward a little bit, have them swish back the other way. You can even move them down a little if you want. We're just doing a little bit of basic overshoot. And if you want to get really advanced, you could do this for each part of this so they're moving separately. I'm going to easy ease these by right clicking. Easy ease. Now let's see what we got. See, a little bit more life to it. That's follow through and overlapping action. Where the motion started, down here, the further you get from that starting motion, the more things will be moving after the end of it. And again, my microphone broke today, the cable for it. I'm replacing it tomorrow. I'm just borrowing my wife's microphone for tonight. So we got the ears moving with our follow through and the overlapping action of the hair. You can do a little bit with the shapes of the whiskers. So you got these separated. And then you can figure out when you want them to, since these are a little bit lower than the ears, I'm going to have them come in sooner. So I'm going to do a rotate, click here, move forward a little, and the ones on this side will rotate in one direction, the ones on the other side will rotate in the opposite, and I'm going to do it symmetrically. So if I go down, let's say 20, well 22, fine with me. And then this one, I'm going to go 22 in the other direction. Then I can go forward a little bit, up to a positive amount. Let's try 16. And then these, I'll set to 16. Getting a little bit off the face, so I could just go less severe. 9. Oh, and I didn't select one of them. Like that, and then we'll go forward and we'll just bring back up. Now, of course, you would want to get to a more natural overshoot, but I'm just showing you the concept, so that's what lab time's all about. I'm going to easy ease these, select them, right click, easy ease. Now let's see what that looks like. See? Little bits of life. If you've got an organic creature, there is so much you can do with it. Head comes up, asks for scale, and what we could do is we could non-uniformly scale it, add keyframes here, move forward a few frames, and then you could exaggerate so it's anticipation. The eyes get a little bigger, stay there for a moment, then a few frames down, come down for a blink, and you don't have to go fully to 0. You can make your blink be any width you want. If you want them to stay there for a moment, move forward a few frames and click your empty diamond so that this keyframe is the same as the one that came before it, and then we can move forward a few frames and set that back to 100. Actually, you can go a little bit past 100 for overshoot, then go down to 100. And let's ease that and see what we've got. I'm just right clicking on my keyframes, zooming in and out. Here comes the head. There go the ears, a little bit of swish from the hair, the whiskers, and the blink. I'm giving constructive criticism, not to berate anybody. It's my job as an instructor to push your work and help you see things that will make it better and, continue with the learning process. Next, we can do a little swish with the nose, and there's the mouth. Yep, okay. So if we select all 3 of these, you could add your keyframes, go up a little bit, and then down a little bit, for a little bit of a wiggle, then back up to wherever they were. So if this was, it'd probably be here. So if I select those and paste them there, oops, nope, gotta do it one at a time. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Got a little bit of up and down, and once it's settled, you can add a little bit of rotation side to side. And that's because the anchor points aren't at the center that that's happening. Again, I'm just showing you some possibilities here. So let's keyframe assist that, easy ease, and again, I apologize for not having my good mic tonight. See? Look at all that life we just added. And lastly, is this a shape? Here's why I'm happy to see that. If I put a square here, using my square tool, here it is right here, I cannot animate that path because it's a geometric shape. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to make sure nothing's selected. If I draw a square using the pen tool, now you can animate that shape. That's why sometimes if you need it, you could put down your geometric shape, lock it, and then trace over it with the pen tool to get that extra level of flexibility. When I saw this ellipse, I was a little worried it might not be paths, but it is. So what we could do is right here, we could have that shape have a little bit of drag to it. Right here. Okay, so if I go forward, let's have it move a little bit behind. So it's still down here to the side a little bit as it's swinging up. And then I'm going to have it go further to the side, further here. Just these little itty bitty jostles of it. Easy ease that. See that? Any shape can be interesting if you put the care into it. And that was just 20 minutes of fiddling with what was already there. That's why I say if you do a little bit each week, you can really push it quickly because the shapes are there. Then you can start looking at motion and figuring out what you want to do. The outline around it moves, so that's set up perfectly. And the first thing I noticed, your render area is only 1 frame long, so I'm going to drag that out. And we can shorten this because it only needs to be a maximum of 15 seconds. Remember, hours, minutes, seconds, frames, that's your time code. You can work at 29.9 if you want, or you can work at 24. It's up to you as the designer. So let's check out the rig for this. The palm has the fingers in it, which is perfect. Then there's the arm, and here's the chest piece. Let's say the chest piece starts over here for the fun of it. Okay? And within 2 seconds, let's say, in 2 seconds, the arm comes in. Let's do 3. Why not? The palm is parented to the arm. Perfect. You can do that by using the drop down or the pick whip. That's great. So if I move the arm, the palm moves with it. Now the arm, I'm just going to put this anchor point. I'm holding down Command or Control to snap it. So this way, that was because this was parented to it. It scaled with it. Let's break that for a second. Now you can make your arm a little bit bigger. And I can also move that to meet the hand a little bit better. Now I can rejoin it. Let's take a look. Yep, see? If you want, you could even have forearm, an upper arm, and a bend. If you want, it's all up to you as the artist. So we said 3 seconds. Here's where we want the arm to be. Oh, actually, wait, a little bit past that. Okay, good. So I go back and move this fully off the screen. And this would work if you had a forearm as well. So the arm comes in, and you can have all 5 fingers. And we can animate those paths. So you see them moving as the arm moves, preparing the viewer for it. That went a little long with the thumb, but, you know, I'm just showing you how you can keyframe those independently. Have that. Oh, I overshot it. That's funny. And subtle things like this, like bends, that will have them seem more finger-like. And then what we do here is we can now, if we want the chest piece to start moving, we can split it. And I can do that by hitting Command-Shift-D. That'll split the layer. Or I could go Edit, Split Layer. Both will work. It split it right there. So now you can parent this to the arm, so that as the arm moves up, I'm going to copy that keyframe, paste it just to save us some time. So now the chest piece moves with it. And then like we showed last week, you could have the name pop up from behind the arm, and you don't even need that name to be here until the shape's about to leave. And you could do that by holding down Alt and hitting the bracket next to the letter P, or you could get the double arrow, hold down Shift and drag. Now that layer's not there until we put it below everything. Now it magically reveals itself like such. And then I was saying it might be neat if this was the eye and bishop, and Ishop reveals below that, and then another hand comes in and places the B, and you have them two different colors like in a chess game. So one hand is moving one piece and another hand moves the final B into position. That would look pretty nice. And then you'd have the piece there with the name. But that's a quick breakdown of your parenting was there, you just didn't move the piece. So if I duplicate this forearm and I can parent the forearm to the upper arm in a second, but first I'm going to move the anchor point of the forearm. This is if you're going to have one. It's going to be here where it meets the upper arm. Now the upper arm, I'm going to have mine at the same spot where it would meet the shoulder. Now we've got an arm. So it'd be the palm parented to the forearm parented to the upper arm. So if you rotate the upper arm, it all moves together. So you can have it move down like this. Let's say it's off the screen. Go forward a little bit. Move them all down. Here's where it rests. As it's coming down, you can then rotate the the forearm a little bit, and then that little bit of anticipation, building this up with maybe the wrist, moving up, see? Golden rule, set your anchor points first. I didn't do it, didn't listen to myself. Let's say this is where it meets the arm, just pretend. Like such. Completely different type of motion. Does this parenting make sense? The palm is parented to the forearm is parented to the upper arm. You have all your anchor points where the joins meet. The upper arm, since everything's parented to it, everything moves along with it, but you can still independently rotate the pieces that are parented to it to get the motion you want. So, we've seen so far doing this, animating a path that way. You can do it, that's one way to do it. I'm going to make another path, and I'm going to show you another way of animating a path. This is another 3-point path. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the word path. Go to Window, create Nulls from paths. Nulls follow points. Nope, we want points follow nulls. And I'll show you what that means in a second. What that did was it put a null where every point is. And you see my different nulls. You can name them. Now watch what's going to happen here. This one right here, I'm going to animate by doing that. And you go, well, whoop-de-woo, we did the same thing over here. Yes, but now we've got a null. What's that mean? That means, let me select here. Here's my awesome hand. I'll get rid of my stroke. So I can now get this hand and parent that to So now it moves with it. But even better than that, watch this. If I choose rotate on that null, I can rotate what's parented to it, because you're not going to see it rotating a path point. So for Mark, this is another possibility to consider for character rigging, using paths as the limbs, and then doing that, selecting the path right there, and then going Window, Create Nulls from Paths, and then choosing Points Follow Nulls. Then you can parent things to the nulls as well as move them around. Now let's see what happens if I rotate this. I don't think anything's going to happen. Yep, nothing's going to happen there. I could animate that point down. Now, if I hold down Command and double-click on the Pan Behind tool, it's going to snap the anchor point to the center of that layer. Now I can just easily hold down Command or Control, snap it to the middle. And we've got the stiff swish of the tail we had last week. So I'm going to do puppet pins, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's a lot of range of motion. Okay, there's my pins. Let's move forward a little bit and select the top 3. 2. Forward a little bit. Select the top 1. So what we've got is an arc happening, because like I said, here's the motion, and the further out you get from it, that's going to change how your animation will be to get that follow through and overlapping motions. I do this, and then start bringing it back. I've got that bottom one selected. A little, move forward a little bit more, deselect that, come back a little more, move forward, go up one more, go back, go forward. So this is achieving something similar without Duik, but you see how much more involved it is working through your structure. The puppet pins are what give it that ripple, because I'm moving it little by little at where those pins are. Here we go. I'm going to import my photo. You can double click on an empty spot in the project panel or go File, Import File. If I have this selected while I draw a shape, that'll create a mask. Same as if it's selected and I use the pen tool, that'll create a mask. We've got 2 different types, more or less. There's add, it's adding what's inside the shape, or subtract, it's subtracting what's inside the shape. If I click my transparency grid, you can see what is transparent. That's the first step. Masks are an incredibly powerful tool in motion design. They've got a path. You can animate the path if you like. Same as your shape paths, you can move the path points as well as the Bezier curve handles. And if you hold down Alt or Option, you can move just one part of that handle, so you can animate your mask over time. Anything with a stopwatch can be animated. With masks, you can feather them. And this right here shows or hides paths. So now I've got a softer gradation that's very useful for blending things together or for special effects. You could also change the expansion, making it larger or smaller over time. And you could use that for effects, motion, as well as transitions. And there's one last thing I want you to look at with masks. When you feather a mask, you feather every edge of the mask uniformly, okay? That's important, and I'm going to show you why. There's my mask. Now watch what happens. In my pen tool, there's mask feather. Well, I can add feather points to any side that I choose, like I just did there. The further I drag, it's feathering out that shape now. So I've only got, I'm going to hide my, I've got a hard edge here and a feathered edge there. And that's the difference between the mask feather tool and the feathering a mask. Very useful when you've got to blend in just one side and keep the rest of it sharp. I've got nothing selected. I'll draw a shape. And I'm going to fill it with a radial gradient. Okay, so my gradient is over the photo. We're in my switches. Now we're in modes. If I choose Luma Matte, see what's happening? It's keeping the shape that I had, but then using the black and white values to add opacity as well as the alpha. And Luma Invert moves in the opposite direction. I'll put my photo back again with nothing selected. If I have shape here, above it and below I choose Alpha Matte, it's going to be the size of that shape above it, which we just went over tonight. But show you something new, do a solid. An Alpha Invert Matte works like a cookie cutter. The shape you want to cut through goes over the solid, and I choose Alpha Invert on the solid, and now you've got the image showing through. This could also be a video or a photo, so it's whatever's on top cuts through the layer below, showing the layer underneath that. Because on top, this is my middle layer, and this is the bottom layer. And if anyone has ever seen, let me hold down Command, double click the pan behind tool. If you've ever seen Stranger Things, or basically any movie for that matter, if I scale up the top layer, you've now got a fly-through effect. You just gotta make sure there's a solid negative space for you to fly through at the center. I can move that out to make it a little slower, like such. So an alpha matte is one layer revealing another layer. In alpha inverted matte, the top layer cuts through the middle layer, showing the layer beneath that. And for the alpha matte, we had more than one layer. And an alpha matte is one layer revealing one layer. So I just selected all those layers, right-clicked, and chose Pre-Compose, and then moved all attributes into a new composition. It's got to be lit up blue for that to work. There's my orange circle over top of those 25 layers. That's the matte. The layer below I set to alpha matte. I duplicated the shape of the circle, just put it behind, so we still have that yellow circle visible, while the duplicate of it above is working as an alpha matte. And as you can see, it's keyframed, so you can have animation to your alpha mattes as well. Command, Shift, and the letter C with my text selected will center, align the text. And now I can just go to Window and align this. Okay, so it's vertically aligned and horizontally aligned. And let's kick it old school now that you're fairly far along in your motion learning. Let's see. Okay, so here's my layer, and instead of doing a trim path drawing on, I'm going to scale it out from the center, just for something different. So there's more than one way to animate. So I'm going to non-uniformly scale that out. And as that is just wider than the type, this is when and where I want my type to end up. So I'm going to work backwards, going to my first frame, move it below the line. Now, watch this. If I want this type to appear below the line, there's a few ways to appear from, the line. If I draw a mask on it right now, with my layer selected, watch what happens. The mask moves with it, okay? It's not the effect I want. So I've got two options. I can do, first, doing this with an alpha matte, nothing selected. With nothing selected, I draw my shape. Stroke, make it a fill. I'll make it a different color so we can all see what's going on. So, I want the text to be revealed. The alpha matte goes over it. Remember, a mask goes over your face. So the text is what I want to reveal. With my text selected, I go to track matte, alpha matte. Now you can only see the text where that shape layer is. I can even move that shape layer down to reposition it if I want. Or I can animate it. That's one way of doing it. That was using an alpha matte. Now we saw if I put the mask on, the mask will move with it. If I pre-compose my type by selecting it, then moving all attributes, you gotta make sure it's lit up blue. Now if I draw the mask on the pre-comp, my keyframes are inside the pre-comp, and now my mask works. So you could do it either way. You could pre-compose your type, then put a mask on the pre-comp with the type, all attributes inside it, or you could use an alpha matte. That's an example of mattes and masks and some of the things that make them different. Okay, so this is useful with type. It'll swing like a pendulum, or if I hold down Command while I double click on the pan behind, or it'll spin around like a propeller. Okay, that's one thing you know. I'm going to move this down to the bottom middle. Now, if I'm in my switches and I 3D enable this, like we did for parallax, now I can have my type fall in that direction or spin on that axis, which is very useful with a lot of movie titles. They do that. You can have it come in either way. Then I would ease those keyframes. Such. We'll slow that down a little bit. Let's use our speed graph, be pros about it. A question, how do you animate water ripples? Okay, water ripples. A couple ways of doing that. So, I've just got a path here. See waves right here? This is because this was drawn with pen tool. So the longer the wavelength, the further apart they are. The first thing I can do is animate the wavelength so that they spread out. And another thing I can do is the phase. Giving that 2 full rotations, you could also animate the amount. That's one way, using the wave in your stroke. Now don't forget, since this is a stroke, you could also taper it too. get a completely different look. That's one way. And there's my keyframes. They're on the amount, the wavelength, and the phase, and I tapered it at one end just to be a little bit more stylish. Another way you could do it, I'm going to hide this, and we'll do a fill. Wave warp. That will give you waves along two of the edges. Your height is how high the waves go. Width is how far apart they are. You can change the direction of them if you want. Wave speed is how fast it's moving. You can also change the phase. So that's another way of making waves. If I put a mask on this. I clicked on the mask with my shape tool because this is a shape layer. And it just cut out that part but put the wave around it. So that's another way. Think here. Then there is Wave World, which is an effect that works off of a height map. And we can adjust that as we see fit. So we used displacement maps on the fire last week. I'm going to pre-compose this. I'm just testing something out here. Let's throw a displacement map on the text. Choose that wave pre-comp. And now we've got implied water. That's another way to get a watery effect. You could also increase the amount of distortion on either the horizontal or vertical as you see fit. So that's implied water. Now, using that wave world displacement map, I put caustics on here to use that displacement map to get physical waves as well. This is a bit more severe, but it's another way of getting watery type of effect. And I've got something on caustics and wave world. I'm going to lower my preview resolution. Now, I just want to show you real fast. To see the motion, I lowered my resolution. Watch how much this changes based upon my preview resolution. See how different that is? You can't always go off of a low resolution and hope that that's going to be accurate. It's just a lesson learned. I was able to quickly get an idea of what's going on. But to fully take in all the transparency and the shadows, that's night and day in terms of difference. Oh, that's what that is. So we've got that shape, and I wanted to work on broadening it a little bit. Again, all this does is it just thickens that top shape. But, it's looking pretty solid. Let me think of something real fast. Okay, so here's what I'm going to try. I'm going to duplicate your layer. Alright? I'm just messing around because this is what lab time's all about. I'm throwing a tint on it. That just makes it grayscale. Okay? Now you might know where we're going with this. Since it's grayscale, now we've got a displacement map. And with the displacement map, we can add a little interest. So here's what we got now. Here's our displacement map. Right here. And we're going to choose mats and now we're getting some bevel to it. See that? And what we can do here is animate the distortion, the displacement. I'm going to turn up my bits per channel to 32 by holding down Alt and clicking right there. So we've got more dynamic range. Let's take a look at what we got. It'll preview a little bit slower because of the higher resolution in bit depth. So that just adds a little bit more dimension to it with that extra push. It's no longer flat, it turns flat at the end. Is there a light sweep over the end of the type? Yeah, okay, it's there. I see it now. You can even use this on the type as well. So what we can do is put a displacement map in text as well. See, now you got that bevel to it. Let's push those a little closer together. And it goes from that beveled look to a flat look. So that's just one way to push that a little bit further should you choose to, but it's coming along very nicely. And again, I'm just showing you, let me just double check. Test 1, 2, 3, yep, okay. And again, I apologize for the mic quality this week. So already having this, then duplicating that, putting a tint on it to make it grayscale, and then using it as a displacement map changes the look of it dramatically. No problem at all, Mariah. And I'm glad so many of you come back week after week and want to push your designs, want to go a little bit further. This is the type of stuff that's going to help you find work after you get out of school, and that's what I'm passionate about. I want my students to do well. Like I said, little by little by little, and then it just grows and grows week by week. Look at the difference between these two images. See the extra depth and dimensionality we got just from that grayscale and throwing a displacement map. It even bevels this type up a little bit, and then we fade off into the flatter color. So, love it. Keep the questions coming. That's what I'm here for. Go check the student mail. If we could on that end. And while we're at it, I want to show everyone a little trick here. So here's this, and let's pretend we saw tint make something black and white. It does more than that as well. I'm going to put an adjustment layer at the top of this. An adjustment layer affects everything below it. So I could put one effect on the adjustment layer that affects every layer beneath it, such as this tint. And if I change my white to red, that's a fast way of coloring the animation while still keeping all the values to it. Like such. So tint not only makes things grayscale, but you could also pick the light or dark and color it that way while keeping the tones. Let's go here while we're playing Push the Design Further. Let's try a glow. And let's mess around with the threshold. The lower the threshold, the more it affects. The higher the radius, the more of a fog look it gets. And you'll notice that glow only is affecting the brightest parts of this animation because of the amount of threshold we chose. It's just giving it a little bit more pop and volumetric light look. So if I duplicate that one more time, that's with one glow, that's with two glows. Two glows is a bit much, but you see what the difference is. With adding one, it gives it a little bit more of a tail to it. I threw glass on here. I'm using the grayscale of the displacement map. Now we're getting some waviness to it. the softer I make it, the more liquidy it looks. Go a little bit more subtle. Now watch what happens if I stack the glass above the glow. That'll change the look of it as well. And once those tones go away, I can animate this off. So let's see what that looks like with glass and a glow. And we'll see what that glass does. The glass is using the grayscale displacement map to distort the overall image. And then we animated the strength of that softness height displacement once we want it to end. You see how the glass distorts it and makes it more of a liquid effect, in addition to the extra beveling we got using the displacement map. So you can always experiment, see if effects push your animation any further. It's all up to you as the designer. People got to see other uses of a grayscale image as a map, which we use to drive the displacement as well as the glass effect. You could all have the same assignment, but everyone's got their own color palette, their own style, and their own sensibility. It's about finding your voice to make your way in your career. Okay, so we've all seen the wave is coming down. Okay, fine. That's the basic motion. Let's try and get the computer to do some of the rippling for us. And don't forget, clicking here will hide your path and your mask path, so you can focus more on what the effect is doing. Roughen Edges is working off of a hidden fractal, which as the image moves through the fractal, it gets distorted. That's part of it. Ooh, I'm liking what the stretch is doing to it. That's really nice. Look at that. I usually don't mess around with that, but that pushed it a whole lot. Now, let's do our path. I don't want to have to animate the path too much. Turn this back on so we can see the path. And I'm going to make a third keyframe. I'm going to step these out. So all three of these paths are the same. So if I just change the middle path, I can have it distort to the middle and then go back to the beginning. So I'm getting three types of motion with just changing my path once. So I'll have this section come up. This section go down. This section go down and out. Now let's spread these out. Look at that. That took very little time at all. And the beauty is, if I hit Command D to duplicate it and offset it a couple frames, and I widened it a little bit. And now I have 2 waves for the price of 1. Let's try one more thing. I'm right-clicking on my art, and I'm going to try layer styles inner glow. Give it a little bit of shimmer and sheen, see? So I'll click off there to see my work better. We can colorize this whatever we want. We don't have to go white, we can go blue. Make it larger with size if we want. See, now we've got almost looks like moonlight hitting it. Look at that. Added a little bit more visual interest with very little effort. Paste it onto the other one. So, in answer to your question, Alexis, that's even another way of getting water. And see how this is even more different from the other ones. And this one's more effect driven. A little bit of path shape going on. But look at how much volume this has with that highlight I put on it. I'm really pleased with this. I didn't think it'd come out. It was just using the stretch on that roughen edge that really pushed it. All it was roughen edges, and that stretch on the width really pushed it over the top. Let's try playing along a little bit more, because I'm feeling inspired. Try add wiggle paths to it. And you can see it's moving a lot more already because the path points are being wiggled. It's all about finding a happy medium. I like that. It's all up to you. Ooh. Get the correlation where it was. Randomize it. See if that's good. Look at that. That has a ton more life to it. And let's say we're feeling lazy. And we don't want to have that second layer. Let's see if we can put a repeater on it. Let's try 8 copies. And this time, the position will set on the Y. Oh wait, that's the offset. Haha. There's my copies. Now we're seeing them spread out. I decreased my offset. And what we could do is we have them scale down. I changed my offset a bit. Spread these out a little further so they're not connected. Scale them down a little bit more. Spread them out a little more. And I'm going to drop my bits per bit depth. See, I lose that nice glow to it, so I'm not going to do that. So now I'm going to animate these fully off the screen. That changed it an awful lot, that repeater. So that looks more like water covering up a camera lens. It's all about playing around. Stop the render there. And let's see what that looks like, just for the fun of it. This is animating a lot faster because it has a repeater on it. It's taking up less processor. Yes, it does remind me of a lava lamp. Good point, Alexis. But you see how this changed so much, putting that repeater on it and scaling it down. So it starts off a little smaller and gets larger, and then we put the wiggle path on it to give it even more life and motion. So this is very interesting. It took very little time. So that's another way of getting a watery type of look. Like I said, there's lots of ways of doing things. It's all about playing around, taking deep breaths, relaxing, trying not to stress out and have some fun while you experiment. Motion design's mostly mental, like I've said. Just try and figure out what you want to do and then work your way towards getting there. There you go. Now that's moving pretty fast and jittery, but you could always move the keyframes further apart. We definitely covered a wide variety of animation techniques tonight. Lots of different ways of doing things. But the important thing is we got things moving, and more importantly, we kept the projects moving along. Think about our animation hierarchy, parenting, how things are going to happen, when they're going to happen. Come up with different ways of pushing things. More than one way of rigging something. And don't forget this new way of moving paths I showed you using Nulls, because then you can parent things to those Nulls and rotate them. And this was just using staggered out puppet pins to get that swish. This one we used a grayscale of our image to drive the displacement map and the glass effect. Push that a little further. And then this was just one of the many, many ways of making watery type of animation. Lots of different ways of getting the results you want. It's all about taking the time, asking the questions, and just moving little by little each week. So I hope you all have a great weekend, and just keep the questions coming. And feel free to email me. I'll try and respond when I can, and answer, in the lab time or in between. So have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks for hopping on tonight.